Yes, to be honest, technically nothing extraordinary has happened in the premium segment for quite some time. The last thing that wowed me was the 2016 Audi 2016 suspension, which adjusted stabilizer stiffness in corners with an epic effect. Even 8 years later, getting into the Urus with the same system was still impressive. And then the race for LED screens started, new names for massagers and taking away our buttons. Sure, cars became faster, mostly thanks to plugins. Of course, matrix lights appeared, but now they're no longer a premium feature. You can even get them in a Skoda. They've added, I don't know, LiDARs, but these cars still don't drive themselves, so there's no breakthrough. This year, I finally drove the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra, and while the acceleration impressed me, the real wow factor was getting that performance at a premium car price. And today we have another candidate. It's China, which wants to make a WOW, and interestingly, there's also an electronics manufacturer behind it. This time it's Huawei. Here is the Aito M9 in its top version, just like with Ultra phones. Will it do as well as Xiaomi? I invite you to watch, especially if you're new to my channel. Zakharov. Let's get started. The Aito M9 is a large SUV in the E segment, so we're talking about the size of a BMW X7 or a Mercedes GLS. Air suspension, dampers with variable damping force, everything a car in this segment should have. From the outside, the car looks monumental like most in this segment, but it's even more noticeable here due to the contrasting trim pieces. As you can see, there's plenty of chrome here too. Notice that the 21-inch wheels aren't excessively large. You could definitely have 22-inch wheels here, but I think this choice was made for fuel efficiency. Here you can see the aerodynamic rims, which don't look ugly, but they don't look particularly beautiful either. The front, even though there's an engine under the hood, including a combustion engine, is shaped more like an electric car. Of course, there's an air intake for it down here on the outside. Notice this LED matrix under the headlights. It's used to display various types of animations here on the right side. After plugging in, you'll see the time for a full charge. You can also display animations and hearts on the back. So you have to admit, for such a serious segment, this car allows itself to wink at customers, and when it comes to eyes, this car has quite a few of them. Here we have a LiDAR, here we have 2 cameras, another one in the front, here we have 3 more. Under the mirror there's another camera, and in the back we find a set of 3 cameras and some kind of sensor, maybe. Guys, before we move on, let me open my laptop and show you something interesting. I'm on the AutoFixer website right now. It's a Polish store with car parts. They recently contacted me with a collaboration offer and immediately shared their price list. My first thought was, the prices are good, but what's the catch? They said they want to increase sales and are willing to lower prices. I, on the other hand, checked, and on a well-known sales platform they have plenty of good reviews, so at the bottom of the screen there's the email partnersautofixer.com. Don't worry, despite the .com ending, it's a Polish store. Especially if you often buy parts, write to them or call them. The phone number is also in the description. Their representative will contact you and link your account to, well, such price lists. This is important. By simply entering it in the search engine, you get one price, but after logging into an account linked to better prices, the same part will be much cheaper. Searching for parts is done by vehicle identification number. You can also ask them to help reduce returns. Interestingly, they deliver abroad, including the Iberian Peninsula. I won't go into details, just summarize. If you still need it, get in touch. I warmly invite you to partnersautofixer.com. And now, let's get back to the test. Look at what powers it. 2 electric motors, front and rear. The rear one is a bit more powerful. It's powered exclusively by electricity, with a system output of about 490 horsepower and 675 Nm of torque. There's also a 1.5 turbo combustion engine on board, which serves only as a generator. It goes from 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, so its power and performance are fairly typical for this segment, though a 200 km/h top speed isn't exactly standard. The average fuel consumption after depleting the 50 kW of battery is 7 liters per 100 kilometers. The car offers a range over 1,100 kilometers, but only up to 200 kilometers are electric powered. The rest is driving with the gasoline generator, so in this setup the second half of the range depends only on the fuel tank capacity. So it doesn't really impress me that much. The doors close automatically. Here we have real wood, leather and foam that feel authentic to the touch, comfortable armrests, and at the very bottom there's also leather with foam underneath. Even here by the door pockets, all the way down to the floor, these doors are soft, and interestingly there's hard plastic inside. Alcantara is right above the driver's head. We have a speaker, and actually the nicest speaker is probably here in the middle. Actually it's not a speaker, but rather a kind of lighting installation above the speaker. So it doesn't even necessarily have to play anything, it just has to look good. We have 3 screens here, probably integrated with Huawei because we have Huawei video here. That worries me a bit because this is Huawei ADS, so is it going to show me ads? Anyway, there's no piano black here, there's only leather, real wood, something that reminds you of crystals or glass, or maybe it actually is. I'm not going to check that anymore. By the way, this is a knob that selects the driving mode. As you can see, we have Eco, Comfort, Sport, and Custom modes. In Custom, you can select your preferred ride height thanks to the air suspension, plus access more options. However, I don't really see, for example, the possibility to set how the steering wheel or the engine response will work in different modes. With just one click you can switch to sleep mode, comfort, camping, because you can also power a campsite here, or even turn the car into a cinema. I'll show you that in a moment too. Notice the interesting speaker in an unusual spot. I'm actually sitting on it right now. As for the seats, I have the massage function on right now. There's ventilation, and notice that heating was also available in the 3rd row, ventilation on 4 seats, and massage on 4 seats as well. There's also auto launch, which means we can, for example, fold the passenger seat. It tells you to make sure there's nothing on the seat beforehand, and that's it. Let's see.
What's happening here? Thank you.
I hope he doesn't mess up his own construction here because there's a cinema set up in the back. It's scary to think about because look, he actually split the seat into 2 independent parts. One of them is lying on the floor and the other one is completely hidden. Electrically controlled seats usually have little flexibility when it comes to folding them. But here, look at that, it almost took itself out of the car. And there's one more option.
And in the back, we're moving on.
Oh, look at the seat, which moves not only backward but also toward the center, and now look, they're moving automatically. From what I see, the armrests. As a 2-meter tall guy, I barely fit with the seat lowered, and I'm looking right at the windshield. There are thick pillars about 2/3 up that slightly limit visibility, but it's not a big problem. From a 2-meter tall guy's view, it's just average. Another wide pillar, then another. That's it. There's a home theater in the back, I'll show you soon. The range is 44 kilo on electric and 1,135 kilo on gasoline. I'm moving to the back. I clicked the door opener and look, the door's opened. Honestly, I thought they shouldn't open unless they have some sensors. There are so many cameras around here that they decided it's safe. Here we see, just like in the driver's seat, a fully adjustable seat. Actually, it's even better than the driver's seat because here there's also a fancy footrest you can unfold, which the driver doesn't have. Here we already have the home theater set up, as you can see, and it's a projector, but it doesn't look good on the screen. Definitely on yours because it flickers a bit. I can see it on the camera. In reality, it's a completely normal picture. Please roll it up, and it starts rolling up. In the meantime, I'll show you something strange. I have my blinds, but they're manually operated. Oh, I accidentally discovered a new mode. Look, it didn't roll up all the way, but it's still working. It displays, but it only shows a narrow strip, which actually replaces a bigger screen that would be placed somewhere here because it shows me this and that. I'm trying to roll it up, and I think you have to hold it all the way. Now it's rolled up. Look how neatly it's arranged between one. Hey, why is it unfolding? I don't want that. I really want it to roll up. Notice that in the second row, the only air vent there is the one that's like 15 centimeters from my head. I prefer to have an air vent somewhere here. I prefer to have an air vent somewhere here. You know, the B-pillar, that's kind of a must-have, right? Look, they saw the footrest was extended and it only moved out electrically after being folded back. And of course, a little fridge. Here we have an electric armrest that lifts up. In the armrest, there's a cup holder, and here I have massage, ventilation, and heating. but my seat here is kind of a bit worse. Here, this seat has 2 extra buttons on its armrest for reclining and folding it. So I'm saying this. We're back to square one, and in the meantime I'll do the 2-meter guy test. So I'm sitting in the seat set to the lowest position and above my head. I've got a pretty decent amount of space, although here on the side I've got a bit less, but for my knees. There's a lot of space, but it's hard to say if that's much or little, because here you can arrange these 5 meters of length however you want. So it can be more or less depending on what you really need from this car. Plus we have a storage compartment behind the seat and quite a large pocket also in the door. And a lot of speakers everywhere, speakers right here next to your ear. Literally this little control tablet for everything on board can be taken out. And now we can conveniently adjust, for example, the multimedia system, the radio, or other options that I'm a bit afraid to use. It's obviously charging, but what is it? This is a direct phone to Beijing. What does it do? No, I won't test it. Maybe it's better not to. After all, Huawei once lost access to Google services. There was something behind it, so it's better not to press any red buttons. Notice that although these seats also move right and left, I'm not really able to trigger it on demand because this seat was moving closer to me. While setting itself to the zero gravity position, I don't see any button on it that would do it on demand in the back. There's plenty of space in this case, but it depends on the arrangements. With the passenger sitting in front of me, I'm moving forward now. It's already moved about 10 cm and suddenly I'm starting to run out of space. I have seat heating here. I can also adjust the angle of the backrest. We have a USB-C port, a cup holder, 2 small speakers, our own light and our own air vent. I'm wondering about the lack of any buttons to fold these seats so I could get in the back here. It seems that the idea is that I get into the second row and just go to the back here between the seats. That's how I see it. These rear seats are narrow due to the raised area. Of course, this makes for a very comfortable armrest on each side, but these 2 seats are not the same as the captain's chairs in the front. However, I still have plenty of headroom. An interesting thing is that this display also becomes a functional assistant in various situations. For example, I press the button to open the door and a helpful tip appears. Check your surroundings before opening the door. By the time I finished reading, the door was open, so a car or subway could have hit me. Here's the trunk of the Aito M9. Here is the version with the 3rd row seats unfolded, so I would say it's about 200 to 250 liters max, and this is the version after folding them down electrically. Of course, because here we have a full set of seat buttons, and then supposedly there should be around 600 liters here. I don't know if I should trust these Chinese measurements. At first glance, it doesn't look all that impressive. Maybe it's because of these different elements sticking into the trunk. Anyway, here we can lower or raise the loading threshold. The pneumatic suspension comes in handy here, and it really does lower very nicely. There's also a compartment on the left under the trunk floor. It's a bit surprising that there's no second button, and at the same time closing the tailgate and locking the central lock, which is a fairly standard feature in many cars, not just premium ones. And when it comes to the driving experience, I have to tell you, it drives fantastically. Silence and smoothness of movement are the 2 most important features of this car. You can feel its size, its weight, and that everything is supported by air suspension. Add a good road to that, and this car just glides as if it's not even touching the asphalt. Now let's see how it handles the moose test at 50 kilometers per hour. 1-2, before I say how it did. I'll add that when I wanted to do the moose test and set the speed to 50 kilometers, I wanted to accelerate. Because I thought I was going 40, but I looked at the speedometer and I was going 60, so I really had to brake hard. This car steals half the sensation of our actual speed. It's incredible, like a capsule for moving around. However, when it comes to the moose test itself, there was nothing surprising there. A big car, suspended quite high on air suspension in sport mode, had no intention of turning sportily. It just lazily bounced off. It leaned one way, then even more the other. I admit the tires didn't squeal and the electronics didn't help. It happened fairly naturally, but with a very noticeable body roll. So I would say it's not that it doesn't like these maneuvers, but it's not something it's meant to impress with. However, when it comes to acceleration, I have to say that this is already the second car that has just been taken off the truck. It has 50 kilometers on the clock, so no one has played with it longer before me. So listen, I'm in sport mode, I press the gas, 62, 65, 69, 70. I'm going downhill, that's why it's faster. 80, it barely accelerates, so it was the same with the Denso Z9 Grand Touring. All these cars, after being taken off the truck, probably require some extra activation of all possible options, because what's happening here, it's not even appropriate to criticize it. Because it's accelerating now, it's full throttle, and now it accelerates to 115 seconds, so that's definitely not what it was made for. There's absolutely no 5 seconds here, so I won't comment on it further, because this is definitely not its target power or intended capabilities. Another proof that this is a car made for driving straight ahead is a phenomenon I recently observed in another car, also from China by the way. The steering wheel freezes at the 0 point. It feels comfortable at that 0 point. The car just glides, moves forward, but pulling the steering wheel out of that 0 point requires, let's say, more force than I would have expected. In the previous car, the Xlantic's ES resistance was higher, so it's not a big issue here. But actually pulling it out of the straight ahead position is a bit harder than in other cars. I briefly got a message saying the battery was extremely low and I had just 10 kilometers of range left. I don't get it. This is range extender, an electric car that should start its engine when the battery dies, so why doesn't it? I don't see any option that would encourage me to do that. It's so illogical that I don't even criticize it. It's clearly not the right way to configure it, but that's how it is. I'm sharing how I feel. Fun fact, do you remember that? A few years ago, Kia introduced a feature where, when you turn on the indicator, the camera image appears on the screen, and look at what's happening in this car. Well, this information is displayed on the head-up display, so we don't even have to turn our heads here to see what's behind us, because this information is visible right in front of us. And since we're even showing an image when we turn on the indicator, you can guess what happens in this car when we put it in reverse. Of course, the image from the reversing camera is displayed not only on the screen on the right, I'll put it in reverse again now, but also on the screen right in front of the driver. The only question is what will happen if I put it in reverse and turn on the indicator at the same time. It doesn't show on two screens at the same time anymore. That's pretty intense. And here's my first thought. Of course, it's impressive, but when we get to the price, the SU7 from Xiaomi competed with ultra-expensive cars and was clearly cheaper than them. However, if we look at the prices of the X7 or GLS, they start at around 500,000 zlotys, and with high-end equipment, they can easily reach 700,000. So the question is, how much would a Chinese car with similar ambitions have to cost for you to say, okay? Of course, I appreciate the GLS and X7, but I would choose Aito, because just look at the price when buying this car. Leaving aside the price, which I already mentioned, is worth thinking about, how much it could cost, and I'll tell you in a moment how much it actually costs and we'll discuss it. There's one more thing. Well, Huawei is the technology partner here, providing of course the technology and a lot of marketing as well. However, the manufacturer of this car is a company called Series. In fact, Series cars were sold on the Polish market in 2021-2022 and around the end of 2030. From what I know, that was reversed and someone bought it. This car was kind of left out in the cold. It's not that there's no warranty, the warranty supposedly still applies, but still. Someone bought a car that's no longer on the market. Of course, it was done by some Polish company that imported these cars, then changed its mind and pulled out. And the company Series has nothing to do with it, but it was the company Series N. This, here, they disappear after the guests leave, then the cribs are found. These ones, yes. Maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but when I saw series in the specification, it struck me again. Series. Alright, we know everything. I'll tell you the price of this car in a moment, but first I'll go back to my introduction where I said that nothing major has happened technically lately. This car isn't revolutionary. But in the context of European stagnation, when manufacturers were dealing with the semiconductor crisis, Euro standards, zero-emission production, and touch screens and buttons, the Chinese didn't just do Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V here, they did Ctrl-A, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, and copied everything into one car. What's missing are matrix headlights and rear-wheel steering. It's unfortunate, but they included as much as possible and still managed to stand out. Isn't this like Disneyland on wheels? Exactly, there's just one problem. Have you considered what you'd pay for it? The car costs nearly 500,000 zlotys, 485,000 for the top version. If you spent that much on your dream vacation and a world trip, you'd have the experience for yourself and no one could take it away. A car isn't a tourist attraction, it's a long-term commitment. Here we can lose a lot. Service, updates, value, image, resale at a decent price. These are all things that are certain with a GLS or an X7, but here they're questionable. I'm not saying this is a Huawei style offer. If you buy this car for emotion, curiosity, or to stand out, the Aito M9 offers more wow than most premium SUVs. That's a fact, but if I were to buy a Chinese car for $500,000, I'd say for me it's a gamble with stakes that are just too high. This isn't a trend for 100,000. That's a potential yearly loss of $100,000, a major difference. When you see a car like that on the road, admire its drivers. They have the money and guts to enjoy it, making it worth a second look. We need people like that. Thanks for watching this episode. Remember to subscribe. And as always in videos from Muawa, a big thank you to Autopunkt Muawa for providing the car for the test.